Hi everyone. So, in this video, I'll talk about agency. But before I start the chapter, a few things to keep in mind. First point is, see, in this video, I'll cover all the important points. I'll discuss this little bit in detail because this chapter is very important from the exam point of view. It comes for around 5 to 10 marks, and even for more marks considering the even MCQ, it will be more than 10 marks. So it will be very important chapter. I'll be doing this chapter in detail because see, this is a very small chapter. You can cover it even in 20 to 30 minutes. But I want to do it in detail, covering each and every example of the institute module, even TYK questions, test your knowledge questions. Because in this chapter, no, since it is very small, easy, simple questions will come from this chapter. I don't want you guys to lose out on that marks, and I want you to score the maximum marks from this any from the question from this chapter. And next thing, what important point about this is, see, I'll be doing from this institute mat itself, and I'll be marking keywords in the particular concept, particular sentences. Okay, in particular paragraphs, I'll also explain. So, I won't use any other any other source of material. I don't use any other source of material. So, in that way, you guys can also mark in the institute mat itself all the important keywords while I am teaching right now, so that when you are doing one revision in 1.5 days, you will be able to cover it fast. And if you watch, and one more thing, point number 3 is, I want you guys to watch this video at least for 2 times, because see, I'll be discussing all the important points and even the examples. No, those examples are very important from the exam point of view. Since they have asked this question, the agency chapter many times, and even in the May 22 exam it had come. So there is a very high chance it will come in May 23 exams. There is a very high chance that they will ask question from this chapter in May 23 as well. So please keep that in mind and listen to the class properly. Okay. And next point number 4 is, see, even the students who have just written their foundation exams can also watch this video, because in this video, since agency chapter is very easy, you can also understand it right now. Right now, you can just start with the simple chapters and don't go for any complicated chapters or big chapters right now. Since this is a very simple chapter and very scoring chapter, I want you guys to watch as well. And you don't have to force yourself to understand anything. Just simply go with the flow. Just see the video like simply as you are watching it. Okay, don't have to mark anything, don't have to see anywhere, just focus on the video and what I'm saying in this video. Okay, begin the chapter now. Okay, agency. As you all know, agency, you would have heard like insurance agent, broker, or securities broker is there, no, that agent, the principal and agent, the relationship between the principal. In this chapter we'll learn about the relationship between principal and agent, as well as the rights and obligation of the agent, as well as circumstance under which the agent is personally liable, acts done by him on behalf of the principal, and the legal position of the agent and the principal and the third parties. And also we'll understand the term sub-agent and substitute agent. Okay, so see, this chapter covers section 182 to 238, section 182 to 238. And one more thing is, see guys, you don't have to remember the sections as I'm telling right now. If you can remember, it's well and good, but you don't have to force yourself to remember this particular section. Understand the concept, understand what the provision is saying, and try to remember the keywords in a particular concept, and you will be well and good, and you will be able to answer the exams in the question. Okay, so focus properly right now. Now coming to the this first paragraph, it's telling you the basic introduction. What is like the relationship of agency is when the one party is authorized by the another party, that is agent, to act on his behalf. That is, this important word is, he should be authorized, agent should be authorized by the principal, and he to act on his behalf or her behalf. Okay, that is what they are trying to tell. And there is nothing important here in this paragraph. These include hiring of employees and retaining the services of other professionals, such as attorney, design professional, software developers. This also, even the people who are hired, or people who have, even the people who are working in chartered accountant firms, these people also considered, can be considered as agents. Partnership firm, partners, chartered accountants who are partners, no, These people also firm of chartered accountants. They are also agents of each other. They are also agents as well as principal to each other. But the employee is an agent of the firm, like that. Okay, you can understand like that. That is very simple example for you to understand. Now get into what is agency. Indian Contract Act does not define the term agency, but as per section 182, the word agent and principal has been defined by the Indian Contract Act, and this is a very, very important definition. Please try to remember this if you can. At least these keywords you should be able to remember. Agent means a person who is employed to do any act for the another and to represent another in dealing with the third parties. Okay, that is agent. He should be employed to do an act as well as to represent the another in dealing with the third parties. That is an agent. Principal means a person for whom such act is done, for whom they are doing that. Person, the employee who is working in a partnership firm is working for the whom? For the principal. Is working on behalf of the principal and is doing an act on behalf of the principal. Suppose if the even in articles, if you are added as an article and you are representing the firm in front of the client, okay, whom are you doing? The person for whom you are doing an act is done who is so represented. You are representing the principal of the firm. So you should be careful when you are working in your when you are working as an article, you are representing the firm in front of the client. So you should be well behaved, present to the properly disciplined, and be careful of your behavior. Okay, when you are representing in front of the client. So that is one thing what I want to tell. And it's similar to you can take that example while understanding this concept. The example of you are working in a particular partnership firm and you as an article you are representing the principal there, the person for whom you are representing, that is the principal chartered accountant, and you are an article, you are an agent. Okay, that is it is a kind of an example. Okay, now test of agency, this is a very, very important concept and it can come in exam. Even in MCQs they can ask this question. Test of agency: whether a person has the capacity to bind the principal and make him answerable to a third party, whether he can establish privity of contract between principal and third parties. That's what the test of agency is. Person has the capacity to bind the principal. So when you're working as an article, you have the capacity to bind the principal and make him answerable to third parties. And also establish privity of the contract between the principal and third party. Privity of contract means to have, it means there is a particular agreement between you and the principal that there is no third party and no stranger can come into the contract. Means you can sue each other, you can file a case against each other, file a petition or sue each other, but third person cannot file a case against you or the principal on behalf of you, on behalf of principal. A third party can't enter the contract. So that is what is privity of contract. What is test of agency? There are two conditions are there. One is you should have the person, the agent should have the capacity to bind the principal and make him answerable to a third party. There are 2 points, try to remember. Okay, this is very, very important. You should have the capacity to bind the principal, number one, and make him answerable to the third parties. And second point is establish privity of contract between principal and third party. Coming to next point, if the answer to this question is yes, then there is a relationship of agency. This is test of agency. Okay, next, coming to next point, this is like they've just explained a little bit further, describe the relationship between one person and another, and whether in where first mentioned person brings second mentioned person into legal relation with others. So this is very important. This Latin word, I think, this maxim is very, very important because in MCQ they can ask a question about this. They can ask question about this maxim, and they'll put four options. You have to figure out which option is the correct answer. See, you can remember this maxim. What does the maxim say? First of all, he who acts through an agent is himself acting. You can understand the meaning just by reading that sentence. See, when an agent is representing a principal, it means that principal himself is acting. Agent is just like what we call intermediary, but it's not like agent is representing principal. Principal himself is acting. He who acts through an agent is himself acting through an agent. Okay, it's principal himself is acting. In this, this you can easily remember by see these two words are there. Now, face it in the maxim. Just think that face it means acting. Acting. He who is acting through the agent is himself is acting. So acting came no two times. He who acts through an agent is himself is acting like that. Okay. Next, coming to next part. See, no one will tell you this maxim. No one will explain. No lecturer. I don't know if anyone will explain. But this maxim is very important from the MCQ point of view. Okay. This is very important from MCQ point of view. Just remember. Next, coming to next point, appointment and authority of the agents. So, who may employ the agent as per section 183? Section 182 was our first section. Okay, section 182. Next, coming to section 182, as per Indian Contract Act, defines the agent and principal. Okay, and next coming to section 183, who may employ an agent? Any person who has the sound mind, as well not in, he should not be a minor, he should be a majority, and he's of sound mind. Persons who are qualified, see, they have clearly given here for you to understand for in a simple thing, in a simple manner. They have given it in capsule, in boxes as well. Person qualified to appoint agent is, he should be a major, should be sound mind. This is, we are talking about the principal here, not the agent. Person who is qualified to appoint the agent is principal. Principal should be a major person and should be of sound mind. That person only can hire an agent. Okay, but agent can be anyone, even a minor can be an agent. Okay, but he is not competent to contract. Those who have read the Foundation Indian Contract Act properly would know that a minor is not competent to enter into contract, right? So this is for principle what we are reading. So any person who has attained the majority according to the law to which he is subject and who is of sound mind may employ an agent. Thus, a minor or a person of unsound mind cannot appoint an agent. Cannot appoint an agent. Okay, what they are telling. Who may be an agent? Now the question came. Who can be an agent? Section 184. Just remember like this. Principal means your CA principal, and agent means you. Who may be the agent? As between the principal and third persons, any person may become an agent, but no person who is not of the age of majority and of sound mind can become an agent. Who has to be responsible to his principal according to the provisions that we have therein contained. So, as between the principal and third persons, any person may become an agent, but no person who is not of the age of majority and of sound mind can become an agent, so as to be responsible to his principal according to provisions in that behalf therein contained. What they are trying to tell here is, see, any person may become an agent. That is, even a minor or a person of unsound mind may become an agent, like I said. But the principal shall be bound by his acts. But the principal, no, he will be bound by the acts of the agent. So, as a rule of caution, minor or a person of unsound mind should not be appointed as an agent because he is incompetent to contract, and in case of his misconduct and negligence, the principal shall not be able to proceed against him. This is very important. So minor, no, even minor and unsound mind person can become an agent. Remember that. But the principal should not appoint them. Why? As an agent, because he is incompetent and to a contract. And in case of misconduct or negligence, the principal will not be able to take action against the agent. You will not be able to sue the minor. You will not be able to sue the unsound mind person. You would have read in Contract Act. Person of unsound mind cannot enter into contract. If a person enters into contract with them, it is void. And person who has entered into contract with a minor only he can take, will take only benefits from you, but he will not give you anything. You can't sue him, you can't file a case against him, you can't take action against him. So principal cannot should not appoint a minor or unsound mind person as an agent, because he cannot take action in case of negligence and they are not competent to contract. I'm spending time in this because this is a very important concept which you should remember. Next, coming to example one. This is a very easy example. Okay, you will be able to answer this. P appoints Q a minor to sell his car for not less than 2 lakh 50. In this case, what happens is there's a person P who appoints Q a minor. Okay, he is appointing a minor. Just they are explaining this concept through this example here. That's all. That a principal appoints a minor as the agent to sell a car for 2 lakh 50, but he sold it for 2 lakhs. Now P cannot claim responsibility from Q. You cannot see. That's what they explain. P will be held bound by this transaction, and further shall have no right against Q for claiming the compensation for having not obeyed his instructions. Q is a minor here, so contract with the minor is void ab initio. That's what I told you, right? And this is also very important concept. Please focus. Okay, please focus. Consideration not necessary. You would have read section 25, I hope, in foundation. In section 25 there is one rule that is where they have mentioned exceptions to the rule where consideration is necessary in a contract. You would be knowing the consideration is a very important part. It is one of the essentials of the contract, but there are certain exceptions to that given in section 25 of the Indian Contract Act. One of the exception is the contract of agency. For entering to a contract of agency, principal need not give consideration to an agent. That's what they have mentioned here. Consideration is not necessary as per section 185. This is section 185. No consideration is necessary to create an agency. And the acceptance of the office of an agent is regarded as sufficient consideration for appointment. To create an agency, there is no need for consideration. You would have read even other exceptions, like even in case of where is that, what examples are there? In case of person who have entered into relationship based on the, in case of person with near dear blood relationship, in that case if the person gives it as a gift, that time no consideration is necessary. That's what you should not forget. The concepts you have read in foundation. Foundation is the very basic which will take which is the basics for you. Foundation means, that's why they call it foundation base for you for the next step. Inter is bound a foundation or a base for next final. Okay, inter concepts will come in final, and foundation concepts will come in inter. That's why you should not forget your basics. This is very important. Please mark in your book. Consideration not necessary, and according to section 185, no consideration is necessary to create an agency. The acceptance of the office of an agent is sufficient consideration for the appointment. These points also very important, which I have marked here. Section 184 is here. Who may be an agent is given in section 184, and you don't have to remember this. Okay, you wouldn't have to remember this part. Okay, just try to remember this. Fine. Next, coming to this, here also this concept is very important. Who may be an agent? Who may employ an agent? Principle section 183. Any person who has attained the majority, like I said, according to the law, and who is of sound mind. You can write this in your own sentence. Just remember that you should be an agent, and you should be a major, and you should be of sound mind. Okay. Next, coming to next part of the chapter. This is part 3, creation of agency. This is very important. Creation of agency. The relation of agency arises whenever one person called the agent has the authority to act on behalf of another called the principal and consents to the act. See, in this sentence, what is very important is the relation of agency arises whenever one person called the agent has the authority. Like I said previously, he should have the authority to act on behalf of the another. The principal should have given him the authority to act on his behalf. He should have the consent to act. Then only the agency is created. The relationship of principal and agent may be created in any of the following ways. These are the following ways in which the principal and agent relationship will be established. These are the 5 ways. These are the 5 modes. In these 5 modes, this is very important. Mode number 3, mode number 4, and mode number 5. These 3 modes are very important from the exam point of view. I'm repeating again. If this questions comes from this point in exam, don't say later on that I didn't study this and I studied only just scanned through the chapter. I only saw these basics. See, the question will come directly from these concepts. Very easy questions will come. If you write even just the provision with your own sentences and write what is there, properly explain, give the conclusion. No, he will give you the best marks, maximum marks in law. So, modes of the creation of agency. These 3 are very important. Necessity, estoppel, holding out, agency by ratification. Just remember. Now, this is very easy. Express appointment, implied appointment. Express means by words, by spoken, by written. Implied means by action. That's all. That is what is implied means. So we'll discuss each one by one now. The first mode, authority may be express or implied. Okay, as per section 186. This is section 186. The authority may be expressed or implied, like I said, may be expressed or implied. Definitions of express and implied authority. Express. An authority is said to be expressed when it is given by words spoken or written. It is expressed. Like I said, written document, like a written agreement, that is express. So, two examples for express authority is A is residing in Delhi, he has a house in Kolkata, and he authorizes B under the power of attorney. This is very important. Under power of attorney, he authorizes B as the caretaker of his house. Agency is created by express agreement. This power of attorney is there, no. This is a written deed, written contract. So, which is authorizing B to be the caretaker of his house in Kolkata. So that's how the relationship of principal and agent is formed here. It is very easy one. Then example 3, if a customer of a bank wishes to transact his banking business through an agent, the bank require a written evidence for the appointment of the agent and will normally ask to see the registered power of attorney appointing the agent. Suppose here customer goes to bank, that time the bank will ask written evidence that oh, you are truly the person who is appointed by that principal for that purpose. So that's also easy. Next, coming to implied authority. Implied means by implication, by action. Authority is said to be implied when it is to be inferred from the circumstance of the case. Inferred from the circumstance of the case, the conduct of the parties, things spoken or written, or in the ordinary course of dealing, and may be accounted for from the circumstance of the case. Like I said, it depends upon circumstance and things spoken or written or in the ordinary course of dealing and may be accounted from the circumstance of the case. Like I said, conduct of the parties as well. So these are the keywords that should be present when implied authority question comes for the mode of creation of agency. So when some question comes, then you have to mention it based on the circumstance of the case and based upon the ordinary course of the dealing, conduct of the parties, things spoken or written, and may be accounted from the circumstance of the case like that. Okay. Now coming to the example, these examples are important because implied authority you won't be able to find out if the case study comes on this unless you know. Okay, if a person realizes rent and gives it to the landlord, he impliedly acts for the landlord as an agent. Suppose, for example, what happens is you authorize some person, you don't even authorize. Okay, if some person realizes the rent and gives it to the landlord, that time suppose that agent gives it to a landlord, it is assumed that he is the agent of the landlord. Okay, suppose your relative, okay, when he was coming to your house, suppose the person who is a tenant to your house, he knows that he is a relative of yours and he gives him the money to give it to you. Suppose that relative gives it to you, it is assumed that you are an agent of that landlord, okay. Just for the purpose of the assuming the authority, I'm telling you like this example, okay. It doesn't mean that relative is the agent of the principal, like the agent of the landlord, okay. That is for an example, okay. Now coming to next, for example 5, this is very important. A owns a shop in Selampur, leaving himself in Kolkata, visiting the shop occasionally. The shop is managed by B, and he is in the habit of ordering goods from C in the name of A for the purpose of the shop and paying for them out of A's funds with A's knowledge. This is the important word in this entire example. If you miss this word, then you'll go wrong in answering the case if it comes, this example comes as a case study. Because see, till here he was doing something, that person who is an agent, but he'll not be considered as an agent unless he has authority. Like I said, agency is formed by authorization to act on behalf of the principal. He should have the authority. In this case, still here there was no mention of authorization. When they said with the A's knowledge, that time it's like A gave his authorization. That's why B is doing that. That is ordering goods from C in the name of A and is paying them out of A's funds, because the A's knowledge means with the A's authorization, with his consent, he is ordering that, he is buying the goods for the shop. It is implied. Now B has implied authority from A for ordering goods from C in the name of A for the purpose of the shop. Okay, this example is a bit important. Please don't forget to read this. Okay, next coming to agency by Estoppel. Agency by Estoppel. You would have heard the word phrase Estoppel in many places. Even in partnership, there is a partner by Estoppel. person who is representing to be acting like he is partner of the particular firm, but he is actually not the partner, but he deals with the third party in the name of the representing the partnership firm. That time we are told in foundation what is the answer, that if he is acting like he is the partner of the particular firm, but he is not a partner, but the third party, assuming that they out of assumption that they thought that out of good faith they gave the money to that person, assuming that he is the partner of that firm, then he is bound to deal with that. He stopped, now he is not, he stopped from denying that authority that he has taken the money, and he has to give the money back now. Okay, that was the example which I want to quote here specifically, because for those students who have read the foundation law properly, those people can apply that knowledge in this 1 year now. So that's why I'm telling you, even the foundation students who are still who are waiting for the result of foundation exam, and they are feeling restless, or they want to prepare something for inter, they can start with a chapter like this, which is very simple and very scoring. Because from the exam point of view, if you run behind big chapters, what happens is they'll give you one tough question, tough adjustment, tough tricky thing in a question. Okay, you will not be able to solve that question unless you prepare the simple chapters where easy questions comes, and you can score maximum marks, and you can even pass the subject, you can even score exemption in that. That's why I urge you, please don't scan these chapters. You have to study these chapters very well, prepare these chapters very good. You should be thorough with each and every concept in these chapters, simple chapters like bailment and patent agency. These are very, very easy chapters, and you should be properly, you should have properly studied in, especially in CA Inter. These chapters are very, very important in my opinion, if you ask me. Okay. Next, coming to next, the agency by Estoppel. I'll stop talking too much. Now I'll talk about what is there in subject. Agency by Estoppel, section 237. What does it say? What does it say? An agency by Estoppel is based upon the principle of Estoppel. The principle of Estoppel is that when one person by declaration, representation, act or omission has intentionally caused or permitted another person to believe a thing to be true and to act upon such belief, he shall not be allowed to deny his previous statement, or he shall be stopped to deny his previous statement or conduct. Just like I explained in my own sentences, that's what they've explained here. Just use a little bit of keywords. This sentence which they have given here, the definition, same definition, you don't have to read. You just have to remember these essentials what they've given here. You can form that same sentence here by using these essentials, because these essentials are very important from the exam point of view. They can form a case study and ask about example. So if you remember these essentials, you can write what is agency by estoppel on your own. But it is very important to write what is agency by estoppel when the case study comes. So please don't forget to read this. Okay. Agency by estoppel is provided under Section 237 of the Indian Contract Act. Indian Contract Act 237, Section 237. Remember, this agency is based upon Indian Contract Act 1872. When what does it say? When an agent has without authority done acts or incurred obligations to third persons on behalf of his principal, the principal is bound by such acts or obligation if he has by his words or conduct induced by such third persons to believe that such acts and obligations were within the scope of the agent's authority. Very important thing here is, important part of the this sentence is this. What they are telling is the principal is bound by such obligations and acts of the agent who has without authority has acted. But principal will become bound, when he will become bound, if he has by his words or conduct induces third persons to believe that such acts and obligations were within the scope of the agent's authority. That means the principal, if he ratifies later on the agent's act, he is not yet an agent, he is assuming he is stranger, but he acts on behalf of certain principal. But he, later on principal also gives him, he ratifies that what the acts of the agent, that time, that what he ratifies, no, then he will become bound by such acts and obligations. That's what they are telling here. Okay, you can write it on your own sentence, just use certain words what they have given here. Principal is bound by such acts and obligations if he has by his words and conduct induced third persons to believe that such acts and obligations were within the scope of the agent's authority. Certain words use. Okay, You can do it. By now you should have learned how to write a sentence by using keywords. I'm marking the keywords. At least you can form a sentence on your own, right? So next, coming to section 237 of the Contract Act, an agency by Estoppel may be created when following essentials are fulfilled. So this is very, very important to remember. These are the essentials of the mode of agency by Estoppel. These are the essentials. What are the essentials? The principal must have made a representation. The representation may be expressed or implied. The representation must state that the agent has an authority to do certain act, although really he has no authority. So the principal must have made the representation. Representation must be expressed or implied. It may be expressed or implied. And the representation must state that the agent has the authority to act certain act, although he really has no authority. Principal must have induced the third person by such representation, and third person must have believed that the representation made by the contract on belief of such representation. I'll tell you how easily you can remember this. These five essentials. See, related to third person, there are two essentials are there. What are those two essentials? Principal, first of all, principal must have induced third person by such representation. Next, the third person must have believed the representation and made the contract on belief of such representation. Two points are there in third person. Principal first he should induce the third person of his representation, and third person must believe on that such representation of the principal and made the contract on belief of such representation. That's what they're trying to tell in these 2 points. Okay, just like I explained here, same thing they have explained it here by with a simple meaning they have tried to explain it here. Do you remember those 2 points? Third party, 2 points are there. Next 3 points are principal must have made the representation, and representation may be expressed or implied. Express implied mode is there, no? Same thing what they are telling here. That representation made by the agent, it may be by way of the agreement or some contract with the principal or by his actions. So that is what representation. Principal must have made the representation. Representation must maybe express or implied, and the representation must state that the agent has the authority to do certain act, although he has really no authority. This third essential is very, very important because here they have told it properly. What is agency by estoppel? In this sentence they have told the representation must state that the agent has an authority to do certain act, although he really has no authority. He has no authority, but he has done. It must state that representation must state that he has an authority to do certain act. Okay. This third essential is very, very important. Keep in mind. Let's discuss example 6 and 7 now. These two examples are very, very important from the exam point of view. Now, what does it say? There is a person called A. He consigns goods to B for sale and gives him the instructions not to sell below a fixed price. C, being ignorant of the B's instruction. C, who is a third person, who is a customer, he didn't know that B was given such instruction by A, the consigner, to sell the goods for a particular fixed price and not below that. C didn't know that he enters into contract with B to buy the goods at a price lower than the reserve price. A is bound by the contract. A is bound by the contract. A cannot plead that he had given instructions to B to not sell the goods below certain price. Agency by estoppel is consequently deemed between A and B. In this case, you can also assume that C, being ignorant, he acted without knowing the B's instruction, without knowing the A's instruction which he had given to B. Right? So, being ignorant of the B's instruction, he acted. So, he acted in good faith. So you can also tell like that C acted in a good faith. But since it is a question on agency, you have to write this thing that it is based on agency by estoppel, and now he cannot claim that he cannot say that he is not bound by the contract. He is bound by the contract. He cannot plead that he had given instructions to be to sell or not sell the goods below certain price. He is bound by agency by estoppel, so he is deemed to be deemed between agency by estoppel is deemed between A and B now. So you can also add these two sentences like C acted in good faith without knowing the B's instruction. So A cannot step away from his responsibility. Like that you can state. Okay. You have to add few sentences. You can't write just what is there here. Okay. You have to apply your mind, you have to apply your knowledge, own knowledge as well in certain places. Okay, just write what you know. Don't write something which is meaningless, which is not related to question. This is not a BCom exam. Okay, in BCom exam, how you wrote it doesn't matter, but here it very matters because it should be related to the question what they have asked. So keep in mind when you're writing the answer, you can write sentences, you can write your own conclusion, or you can write your own, apply your own knowledge as well in these questions. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. But please don't skip the important words which you have given here. Important provision agency by Estoppel. If you miss the main part of the solution, this agency by Estoppel, and you write that she acted in good faith, the examiner he doesn't have the key answers, a key solution mentioning that the C had done it in good faith. He has a solution stating that A cannot plead the given instruction. He cannot plead that he had given instructions and it is agency by Estoppel that they would have given in solution. So you should always try to write what is there, what is the main provision which is applicable there. Give the reference. Then you can add additional points if you know. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell now. These are important things which I will keep telling you while doing the class, while doing these chapters. Okay, please try to apply this what I'm telling. You will score very good marks and you will be able to pass and score exam. That's why I'm trying to do this, and there is no other gain out of this from me for me. Okay, so please like and subscribe at least. It'll motivate me, and I'll be able to know that at least it is helping some of you who are watching my videos. Okay, now coming to next example. Next example is if Payal, the principal, has for several months permitted Sunil to buy goods on credit from Prasad. Yeah, in this case, there's a principal who had permitted another one of his agent to buy the goods on credit from some third party, but and has paid for the goods bought by Sunil. So the principal cannot later refuse to pay Prasad, the third party, saying that we had supplied goods on credit to Sunil in belief that he is the principal's agent. He was buying the goods on behalf of the principal. Principal is stopped from now asserting that Sunil is not his agent because on earlier occasion he permitted Prasad to believe that Sunil was his agent and Prasad had acted in that belief. You understood what is the case about? There is a principle called PL. Okay, PL or POIL. Okay, there is a principle. Okay, that person had permitted Sunil, his agent, to take goods on credit from Prasad and has paid the goods bought by Sunil. Previously, at in previous occasions, he had paid. Now, what happened is principal. Now we cannot refuse to pay Prasad, who had supplied goods to Sunil on belief. He had believed that the principal is acting as a PL's agent or the PL's agent, principal's agent. So he was buying the goods on behalf of PL. So PL is stopped now. He is stopped from now asserting that Sunil is not his agent because on earlier occasions he had permitted Prasad to believe that Sunil was his agent and Prasad had acted on his behalf in that belief. So here important thing what you have to remember is principal is stopped from asserting that Sunil is not his agent and because on earlier occasions he permitted him. So now he cannot step away from his obligation. He has to Prasad acted in that belief. And additional point what you can add in this case is you can say there was a constructive obligation. Those of you remember Indian Contract Act Foundation, there was one in types of contract, I don't remember, but there was a concept called constructive obligation. That also you can add here as per Indian Contract Act. There is a constructive obligation on the principal to because Prasad had acted in that belief. No, he had acted and he had given Sunil to the agent Sunil on the belief that principal is the one who is buying the goods. So now principal has a constructive duty or constructive obligation because to pay Prasad since Prasad had given it to him on his on belief that he is taking on behalf of the principal. Understood. You can add those two lines like there is a constructive obligation on the principal to pay the money to the Prasad. Okay, like that. So Prasad or third party, whoever it is, whatever case they ask in the exam, to that person. So this example is also very important. These two examples are very, very important. They can ask even in MCQ, they can ask even in exam as well directly. Students, what they will tend to do is they'll skip the examples and they'll do only pre-past question papers, or they'll do only the TYK questions, test your knowledge questions, and they won't even see these examples. But these examples are very very important, because at least once you should have seen, because what happens is the person who is validating your paper will get these lines as key solutions, and that time you will see if you have mentioned these lines, if you mentioned these sentences or these keywords. If you have not given mentioned these keywords, the validator may not give you marks, even if you have written the right answer. Because I don't want to say something which is not true here, because I know I've experienced it. That's why I'm telling you guys. The ICI won't give you marks unless you write theory as per how it is given in their material, with the keywords, at least with the provision properly. The keywords in the provision. If you write even in your own sentences without mentioning the keywords, without mentioning the legal technical language, the person might not give you marks. I'm repeating again and again. Please study the keywords in each case properly and you go. Even if you can't study these examples, at least see what is the concept provision agency by Estoppel. If you see that concept, no, if you write even the keywords given in that concept, in that provision, that if you mention in your case study also, you will get marks. So read either the concept or the example. It's better if you read both of them. If you read both of them, it's like icing on the cake. Superb if you can do that. Okay, that's what I can tell right now. Next, coming to necessity. Next mode is necessity. Necessity means I'll mark the keywords and I'll explain. Okay, agency of necessity arises due to some emergent circumstances. It arises due to emergency. Out of necessity means what? Out of emergency. In case of emergency, a person is authorized to do what he cannot do in the ordinary circumstances. Thus, where an agent is authorized to do a certain act, while doing such an act and an emergency arises, he acquires an extraordinary or special authority to act in his principles laws, to prevent his principles loss. So what they're telling is, in case of an emergency, no, the agent can act even if he is not authorized. See, if he is authorized to do certain act, but if he is not authorized to do certain acts, the agent, in case of emergency, to prevent his principal from getting loss, suffering loss, he can act in such a way, in such an so he can do such an act which the principal has not authorized in the ordinary course of circumstances. Where an agent is authorized to do a certain act, while doing such an act, an emergency arises. While doing that act, only emergency arises. He acquires extraordinary or special authority. This is very very important keyword. The extraordinary or special authority to prevent this principle from loss. So you have to write these words. Okay, these are very very important. Next, coming to the example, what in the example they are telling is, there's a person Raja. He has a huge farm on which Sham is a caretaker. When Raja is in England, there is a huge fire on the farm. Sham becomes an agent of necessity for Raja so as to save the property from being destroyed by fire. Raja, the principal, will be liable for any expenses that Sham, his agent, incurred to put out the fire and save the farm from destruction during the Raja's absence from the country. So what they are telling, you understood from the reading only. It is a very simple case study. They are telling there's a person who has caretaker for taking care of his farm. When he is out of the country, that time the farm caught fire. So in order to save his property, the person acted as the agent out of necessity. He became an agent of necessity for Raja to save the property from being destroyed by fire. So now he has an obligation. The Raja, the principal, he has an obligation to will be liable for any expenses which caretaker Sham has incurred to put out the fire and save the farm from destruction during Raja's absence from the country. So this is a very easy case study, but you need to at least see this once. Otherwise, some of you might make mistake, but generally you can answer this example if it comes to the case study, because it is very simple. But you have to remember this provision properly. This is very very important provision. Very very important provision, and these sentences which are marked in this provision is very important. Please study this properly, and If you have any doubts or if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments. I'll definitely reply each one of you. Please, okay. Don't hesitate to ask questions or to ask doubts. Now coming to fifth mode of agency, what does it say? Ratification. Ratification means what? To give consent. That is what ratification means. Ratification means certain act was done by the agent. Now the principal will ratify it. He'll accept it. He'll give consent that yes, he has done it on my behalf like that. That is what ratification means. You would have heard this term, or if you haven't heard, that is what it means. Okay, to give consent. This is also very important mode. Ratification. These are very important modes. Necessity, ratification, like I said, and one more was the Estoppel. Please do read these parts very properly. Okay, this mode of agencies, because it can definitely come in your exams. I can tell. Okay, now, ratification means mode of agency by ratification. Rights of person as to acts done for him without his authority, effect of ratification. It's similar to what can I say? It's similar to that. Which one is that? Agency by Estoppel. He acted without the authority. No, it's similar to that. Rights of the person as to acts done for him without his authority, effect of ratification. Okay, what does it say? Where acts are done by one person on behalf of another, but without his knowledge or authority, he may elect to ratify or to disown such acts. If he ratifies them, the same effects will follow as if they had been performed by his authority. In simple words, ratification means approving a previous act or a transaction. Just like I said, to approve, to give consent for the previous act or transaction. Ratification may be expressed or implied by the conduct of the person on whose behalf the act was done. Okay, it's very easy. They've explained it very easily. You can easily understand what they're trying to tell here. Just like it was in Estoppel, he had no authority. Same here, he did not have authority. By ratifying, the principal is approving the actions of the agent. So here, what is the important keywords is you have to remember that the act done by one person for the another, it was done without his knowledge or authority. That is one important word. Next is he may elect to ratify or to disown such acts. Means he can either approve or disapprove. He can ratify or disown such act. If he ratifies, if he accepts, if he approves, then it will follow as if they had been performed by his authority. If he approves means he is done within his authority. If ratification means that, like I said, approving the previous act or transaction. Ratification may be expressed or implied. Just like it was one of the essential in Estoppel, what was that? The representation may be expressed or implied. Like, just like that, ratification may be expressed or implied. This is how you can link the concepts, link the provisions, you can remember the concepts. Otherwise, each and every concept you can't mug up and you can remember. But keywords, sadly, there is no other choice. You have to remember because ICAI doesn't give you marks unless you remember the keyword. This is the sad truth nowadays. ICAI is doing like that. I don't know if it will change in the future, but it is what it is. I can tell what is going on, the reality, ground reality. I can tell. So it's up to you whether you want to study like how I am telling or how you want to study. See, I'm not forcing anybody to do this, do like this, do like that. See, it's not my wish to force upon you these things. I just tell what is there, what is the truth. It's up to you whether you want to follow it or not. So let's continue with that. Ratification may be expressed or implied by the conduct of the person on whose behalf the act was done. Okay. Now coming to the example for ratification, mode of ratification. What does it say? X, who is a vice agent as on 10th January 2020, purchases goods from Z on credit without vice permission. Here, X, who is an agent of Y, he on 10th January 2020, here he was an agent only. See, one difference between ratification and estoppel is that time he was not an agent, the person who was acting, he was third person. Here, ratifying means he is the agent only, but he is acting beyond his authority here. He is acting beyond his authority. If he is acting beyond his authority, then it is up to principal whether he want to ratify it, whether he want to deny it. See, that's what ratification and the difference between ratification and estoppel. Remember this. Okay. Now, coming to this example, X, who is Y's agent on 10 January, is agent and he purchased goods from Z without Y's permission. After purchase on 20th January, Y tells X that he will accept the responsibility to pay for purchase. Here, in this case, example, the agent of the principal Y, he accepts the responsibility, means he ratifies the actions of his agent for the purchase, although at the time of purchase he had no authority to buy on credit. Okay, so what the agent did beyond his authority here? Here the agent did not have the authority to buy the goods on credit. He can suppose the principal had told him you can't buy goods on credit, you have to purchase goods only on cash basis. Here he why what X did, he went and purchased the goods on credit. Later on, so why the principal took the responsibility and he agreed that the actions of his agent is he will ratify that he will pay for the purchases, yeah, even though he had no authority to buy on credit. Why subsequent statement on 20th January amounts to ratification to excess purchase of goods on 10th January. This is very easy case study. You can have answered without even reading this, but you need to read it twice because there is little bit confusing parts are in this example for some of you. For others, you can easily answer. I think. Okay. Because so many cases from your basic foundation as repeated here, just the concept, similar concept has come here. That's why I'm telling even foundation students can watch this. Now coming to next one, essentials of valid ratification. This is very important. Please remember. Okay, this is very important. Essentials of valid ratification, because institute know, then institute knows that you guys will study all these things. What institute will do is they play it very tricky. They'll ask the essentials of valid ratification, or they might ask one of the essentials as a question, as a case study, as a MCQ. Then, if you have not read the essentials properly, you will answer it wrong and you lose out on the marks. So, study this now properly. What is the essentials? What are the essentials of the valid ratification? What are the essentials? Ratification may be expressed or implied. This is the essentials for valid ratification, just like essentials for Estoppel. It was there, no? Two places the essentials has come till now. Remember that in the modes, essentials for Estoppel is very important. Essentials for ratification is important. Valid ratification that too. Ratification may be expressed or implied, just like there it was representation can be expressed or implied in the conduct of the person on whose behalf the acts are done. In the conduct of the person on whose behalf the acts are done. Okay. Example 10 and 11. These are very important examples, but they are easy. Okay. What they are telling is A without the authority buys goods for B. Afterwards, B sells them to C on his own account. B's conduct implies ratification of the purchase made for him by A. You would have understood what they are telling is A is the agent. He without authority buys goods for B. For B means for principal B. Afterwards, B sells them. B what they did, he sells them to C on his own account. B sells them on his own account. So B's conduct implies ratification of the purchase made for him by A. Understood? I'm not reading the same thing again. I'm trying to make you understand what the example is saying. If you didn't understand, A is their person, agent A. B is the principal. A he buys goods on behalf of B. Then B, what principal did is he sold the goods on his own account to C. So it means that he did not say anything that why you agent you purchase goods without my authority, without your you did it beyond your authority. Instead, what he did was he implied. Implied means by his action he showed that it's fine you bought it on without my authority. It's fine. I'll sell it to someone else. I'll make money now. B's conduct ratifies implies ratification of purchase made for him by A. That's what they're trying to tell. It's very simple. Now next is A without B's authority. Here A again without B's authority lends B's money to C. B accepts interest on money from C. B's conduct implies ratification of the loan. Both the cases they have in both the cases they have given ratification by implication. Ratifying by implication. By implication means by implying. That's what these two examples are based on. Okay, it's not expressed one, it's implied one based on implication. Next one is next essential of valid ratification is knowledge requisite for a valid ratification. Knowledge requisite. Section 198. No valid ratification can be made by a person whose knowledge of the facts of the case is materially defective. If his knowledge of the facts is materially defective, knowledge of the facts is materially defective, then no valid ratification can be made by the person. What does it mean? We'll understand it through examples, because through example you will understand it better. What it is saying is, in this example, A has an authority from P to buy certain goods at the market rate. What P did is, A has authority from P, means principal has given A authority to buy certain goods at market rate. What agent did is he buys at a higher rate, but P accepts the purchase. P comes to know that the goods purchased by A for P belong to A himself. Here principal was not sad, or he was not at all worried about his agent purchased the goods for a year rate. He was like, fine, chalo. But later on, what happened is, what A did was, what P came to know was that A had purchased those goods at a higher rate which belonged to A himself. The ratification is not binding on P here. If, however, the alleged principal is prepared to take the risk of what purported agent has done, he can choose to ratify without full knowledge of the facts. What they're telling in this sentence, you understood. This is you understood. Here, what they told is you understood, because P later on came to know that goods are purchased by A, which belong to A himself for a higher rate. So now the ratification is not binding on P. Means even if he ratifies P, then this is not binding on P. Means he can refuse it even now. Often, even after ratifying it, he can refuse it now. Ratification is not binding on P. But what they're telling is, if however the principal, if he still is prepared to take the risk of what the agent has done, he can choose to ratify without full knowledge of the facts. What they are saying in the next essential is effect of ratifying unauthorized act forming part of a transaction. Section 199. So what it is they are trying to tell here is effect of ratifying the unauthorized act forming part of a transaction. Means a person ratifying any unauthorized act done on his behalf ratifies the whole transaction of which such act formed a part of. There can be ratification of an act in entirely or its rejection entirely. Means the principal cannot ratify a part of the transaction which is beneficial to him and reject the rest. What they're telling is, if the suppose an agent has done a particular transaction, if then the principal cannot say that I'll only accept only part of the transaction, other part I will reject it. Suppose principal has bought some goods and later on he has sold and he had say made some money, then the time the principal can't say that I will only take the profit part, the part about him purchasing the goods, that I'll reject it, that part. No, no, you can't do that. He has to accept the entire part of the transaction. Means either you accept in its entirety or reject in its entirety. That's what they're trying to tell here. Next, coming to next essential, what they're trying to tell here is, see, these two might be confusing, C and D. So read them properly, understand them properly. Here, ratification of unauthorized act cannot injure third person. Section 200. What they are telling is, any act, an act done by one person on behalf of the another without such other person's authority, same, which if done with authority, would have the effect of subjecting a third person to damages or of terminating any right or interest of third person, cannot by ratification be made to have such effect. In other words, they're explaining it now again. When the interest of the third parties is affected, the principle of ratification does not apply. The ratification cannot relate back to a date of contract if the third party has in intervening time acquired the rights. Understood? You would not have understood. Let's see these two examples. You will understand it better. Then I'll come back and explain what they are trying to tell here in this. Okay, you'll understand that time easily. In these two examples, In example 13, what they are telling is A not being authorized thereto by B demands on behalf of B the delivery of the chattel, the property of B, from C, who is in possession of it. This demand cannot be ratified by B so as to make C liable for damages for his refusal to deliver. What they are trying to tell, I understood. A not being authorized thereto by means A who is not authorized by his principal demands on behalf of B the delivery of the property of B. What happened is there is an agent who does not have the authority of his principal went and demanded a property of his principal without on his behalf without any authorization for delivery of the property from C, suppose the third person who is in the possession of it. This demand cannot be ratified by B, means the principal cannot ratify it so as to make C liable for damages for his refusal to deliver. Means suppose he went and asked that agent without his authority of principal's property. Third person who owns that possession of the property, if he refuses to deliver such property to his agent, that time B he cannot ratify such a demand and later on make C, means that the third person pay damages for his refusal to deliver. So if C has refused to give his agent the property, then later on principal can't come that my agent had come to ask you. So why did you reject him? No, pay me you're liable for damages for his refusal to deliver. So that time he refused. No, you pay me the damages. No, he cannot ratify it. The demand cannot be ratified now because here the third person is getting damaged. No, that's what they tell here. He cannot injure third person. Unauthorized act. Ratification cannot injure third person. Here the demand cannot be ratified by its principal so as to make the third person liable for damages for his refusal to deliver. Okay, understood. Whatever act the principal is ratifying of his agent that should not damage or injure the third person, the person who is a stranger who is in this contract. Okay, suppose who is in that circumstance, he should not get injured. Next example 14 is A holds a lease from B and terminable on 3 months notice. C, an unauthorized person, gives notice of termination to A. Notice cannot be ratified by B so as to be binding on A. It's easy. This example is very easy. You can understand. A holds a lease from B means A has lease he has lease from B, terminable on 3 months notice. 3 months notice is terminable. Means 3 months notice should be given for termination on that lease. Okay. C, an unauthorized person, a stranger, gives notice of termination to A. Okay. Gives notice of termination to A. Notice cannot be ratified by B so as to be binding on A. This is bit fun confusing. What they're trying to tell is A is there, no. He holds or leasehold property from B. Okay. He holds leasehold property from B. Okay. Which is B's property, which A is holding on lease. Later on, what happens is C is their third person. He goes to B and gives in. And one condition was there. That condition was that the lease is there holding by A. It can be terminated with 3 months notice. If it is like job, they'll tell no, you have to give 3 months notice, prior notice for leaving a particular job. They'll tell no, like that. This is also 3 months notice should be given before terminating the lease. So 3 months notice which the A did not give. Third person C, he gave B the which the property A is holding on lease, that termination of 3 months to B. Now B cannot ratify the C's what we tell the C's termination form or termination what he has given C, that he cannot authorize. B cannot authorize it. He cannot authorize it and say that see it is valid termination, and he cannot remove A from his lease property because A will get injured. No, it's not E ratifying, it's C is ratifying the B's. C who is ratifying the C who is giving the termination form, and B cannot ratify it. So you understood now. C is an authorized person who gave notice of termination to A. The notice cannot be ratified by B so as to be binding on A. So that's what they are trying to tell there. So I'll explain this. I think you would have understood from these two examples what they're trying to tell in this. What they're telling you is the right act cannot injure a third person. An act done by one person, this you can write on your own. Like it's similar to so many places it came. Act done by one person on behalf of another without the authority of such other person, which if done with authority would have the effect of subjecting a third person to damages or of terminating any right or interest of third person. Can terminate the right or interest of third person, can have damages. Here the damage was happening to third person. Here what happened, here the right or is lease right was getting affected, interest of third person also getting affected. So you cannot by ratification made to have such effect. So this you can write it with this you can write like this in here, like when the interest of the third parties is affected, the principal ratification does not apply. Ratification cannot relate back to the date of contract if the third party has in intervening time acquired rights. Understood. Next essential, what does it say? The reasonable within a reasonable time. Ratification within reasonable time means it should be ratified within reasonable time. Communication of ratification. Ratification must be communicated. And act to be ratified must be valid. Yeah, this is very important. Students might skip this. They'll think this is simple points like communication within reasonable time. This is also act ratified must be valid. They'll read this and they'll go off. But what happens is the ICAI is very smart. They will ask one question based on agency in which it is based on the essential of this act to be ratified must be valid, and they'll ask payment of dividend out of capital. What the students will do is they'll think this question is from companies and company law or some other law where it is not in the book, it is out of syllabus. It is in syllabus and it is there in this minute point which the students miss, and they'll skip, they'll not see properly, they'll just scan through. So payment of dividend out of capital, that act itself is illegal. Payment of dividend out of capital is not allowed as per the Companies Act. It is not allowed. You can pay dividend only out of the profits. You cannot pay out of the capital. I hope you know you cannot pay it out of the capital. It is illegal means it is void. So that it cannot, which is void or illegal, that the act cannot be ratified. If it is illegal, how can you ratify it? So ratifying should not be the act to be ratified should not be one which is void or illegal. So payment of dividend out of capital is illegal, and which is very important, which you should remember. They can ask you an exam. Again and again I'm telling payment of dividend out of capital. They can make one small MCQ and they can ask for 1 mark. Or they might ask you one case in which they might subdivide the question into two, and they might ask one question on this. So it's up to you what you read. But I want to teach you everything. Even if it takes time, I don't care. I'm teaching you each and everything in this. Okay, I want you to get full marks in agency. Next, coming to the next point, forgery of signatures is also one of the act which is illegal. This you can tell. Forgery of signature is illegal anyways. Any other criminal offense or anything which is not permitted by law. So this was the important thing which I want to tell you here, which the students might skip if they have not studied it properly.